Have you ever run out of yarn when you're on vacation? It just happened to me. Keep watching and I'll tell you the story. But first of all, while I was on vacation, I finished my third cowboy sweater knit in Mystery Mouse yarns. And let's see if I can stand up enough to show you the bottom. I'm wearing comfy pants, so sorry about that. But this is DK weight yarn from Mystery Mouse Yarns. The knit along goes until the end of October, so you still have time to join in if you'd like. And all the details are on my website. If you go to the first page and click on Cowboy, it gives you all the links to join the Telegram group and the hashtag, which is hashtag Cowboy KAL 2025. So please join in with us. I'd love to have you there. I've got a new pattern coming out today, and that is my Lighthouse sweater. Let me grab that. Don't generally put my knits on a hanger, but I did this time just because I hate to fold it up. This is really a very basic raglan sweater meant to fit kind of sweatshirt-like with a bit of ease and comfort. It's got brioche, just 3 brioche stitches on each raglan. So that is the fun detail of this sweater. And if you haven't tried brioche, it's a good way to get it in just a small portion. But or if you're a brioche expert, like some of you are, I know, it's a fun little detail to just have in this sweater. You get a little taste of brioche, which, as you know, is a very addictive thing. So it's one of those techniques that once you start, you just can't stop. So the Lighthouse sweater is knit in Chicken Lady Fiber Arts. It's a DK weight, and the yarn base is Americana. And so that's an American yarn and dyed in Colorado. So that is the Lighthouse sweater. It's available on my website now, so go over and grab that. It is at an introductory discount for those of you watching the podcast or getting my newsletter. It's 15% off for the first 7 days. So if you're thinking about the Lighthouse, go ahead and grab that. And I can't wait to see all your projects. It's a fun one. It's got a little bit longer ribbing here, which is a twisted rib, and a twisted rib on the cuff and the bottom also, which makes it's a 1x1 rib, but the twist in there just makes it look a little more sharp and better defined. So it's a favorite of mine too. My husband and I took a trip, and like all knitters, you have to pack more yarn than you could possibly use. But on this trip, this was our first long trip. It was a 2-week trip in our new travel trailer. And we were taking our dog, and we hadn't been on an extended trip in the trailer yet. So we're kind of cognizant on how much we take, and there's not a ton of space. So I felt like I couldn't just cram a lot of yarn in like I normally do, but I really did think that I had plenty. I thought, oh, I'm still gonna be fine, even though it was not quite as much as I would normally take. One of the things that I took was yarn for the Cowboy, and I was about halfway through the body, so I had several inches of just stockinette in the blue to do, and then the color work at the bottom. So I got that done, I think, on the first long driving day. We were going from Indianapolis to Colorado, stopping. We weren't sure about where our stopping points on the way out were going to be, but we ended up stopping in Missouri, past Columbia, so over halfway through Missouri the first night. And this happened, and it was shocking. We were supposed to leave on Saturday morning, and my husband likes to work a lot. He did say he was going to try and get off early that Friday, but, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock, just so we could, finish getting everything ready and be up early to leave on Saturday morning. He left work at about 11 a.m., and we hit the road about noon on Friday. So we got a day jump on our plans. Like I said, that never happens. It was really shocking. But I'm not blaming any of that on my lack of yarn, because I was all packed ahead of time. He just had to add a few things, and he was basically ready to go too. So we left on Friday. I finished this on Friday afternoon, and then I had been working on this poncho that I'm making to wear at a family wedding. And it is a combination of Knitty McPurley, I wanted to say Frankfurt fingering, but no, this is the mohair, the Munich mohair, and some stash yarn I had, which is Socrates from Alpaca with a Twist. So it's an alpaca blend, and it's a sock weight yarn. And so I rolled the Socrates and I rolled the Munich mohair, and then I put them in a cake together. So 1 full skein of this and 1 full skein of this, but I had about this much mohair left over. And in retrospect, I should have wound the rest of this up with the Socrates, but I didn't, because I was pretty sure that I had plenty. And I didn't think that I would run out. But I did run out. And so it's like, oh my gosh. And I was just to the point where I was starting to do the bottom, which is basically just a rolled hem. So maybe 5 or 6 rounds of stockinette stitch, and I got 2 rounds done. So 4 rounds to go, and I ran out. And, I wasn't going to try and match it out there, because there would be no way that I could. The one yarn is probably 15 years old, and the other yarn is, I would have to order it, and I had some at home. So I put it aside. I was just like, I cannot believe that I ran out of yarn. I always pack way more than I could ever possibly use, but I ran out, and it was probably, we did a lot of things, so I wasn't knitting constantly, but I ran out basically with a week to go. And we visited different parts of Colorado, and I'll put in pictures at the end, but we did some hiking. We visited 3 national parks, Great Sand Dunes, Mesa Verde, and the Black Canyon of Gunnison. 2 of those I'd been to before. I'd been to Great Sand Dunes and I'd been to Mesa Verde, but my husband hadn't been to either of those, and neither of us had been to the Black Canyon. So we went to all 3 of those, and then we were heading back to Colorado Springs. While in between the national parks, we went to Silverton, Colorado, and we did a lot of 4-wheel trails in my husband's full-size truck. There were tons of Jeeps and side-by-sides out there, and we're here in this big truck. So we couldn't do all of the trails because we were just too wide and too long to turn around on some of the switchbacks. But we did some fun things, and the weather was fabulous, and the aspens were golden, and it was just a great, great trip. Well, we were heading back. We were going to spend a few days in Colorado Springs and do some things around there, the Garden of the Gods. There's some good hiking trails there. We were going to drive up Pikes Peak. But I knew there were a couple of yarn stores in Colorado Springs. At least the last time I was there, there were a couple of yarn stores. And I had looked online and found two, one of which I went to the last time I was there. The other one, I don't know if it had moved but I hadn't been to that one. So we drove over, followed our GPS on Waze telling us where to turn, and it was not there. The first one that I'd been to before, I had a feeling from some of the reviews that had closed. The first one we went to, I thought, well, maybe they've just moved. So I called the number and it was not in service anymore. And I called the number for the second one and it was not in service anymore. So I'm like, oh, great. What am I going to do? I've got a 2-day drive home, 2 long days, maybe 3, and I don't have any yarn. I was just going to get twitchy. So there was a Hobby Lobby and a Michael's, probably multiple of those because it's a fairly big town. Went to Hobby Lobby, no wool at all, other than they had a couple of skeins of their hand-dyed, but they were variegated and they were colors that I didn't really care for, and I don't know, I just decided not to get those. So we went then to Michael's and I got some yarn at Michael's and I made this hat, which I was inspired by the gold aspens against the green mountains, and so kind of patterned this hat after that, and I'll show you some of my inspiration pictures here too. So I made a cute little hat, and while I was doing that, I thought, I really need to learn how to do the Ladderback Jacquard. So I did that right here, and then again up here in the spots where there were long floats between the patterns. So kind of in this section and in this section, I did the Ladderback Jacquard. It is, I figured it wasn't too difficult, but I had just never really looked into it and tried it. So I watched a video, and I'll probably make my own video on that too. But it's a great technique. It's nice. It really hides your floats well and keeps them from being too loose on the back of your knitting. So I highly recommend the Ladderback Jacquard. Let me know if you want me to write up this pattern. I've got it all charted out and could do that pretty easily. This yarn is from Lion Brand, and I believe, let me go grab the bands here. Yes, it is from Lion Brand, and it is a woolen sponge. It's kind of a single ply yarn, and I used size 8 needles. The ball band suggested size 9, and it's a Woolies yarn. You can tell I think actually on both of these they had barely any stock, and I was lucky that they had colors that I thought would work, but I think the ball band on both of them were torn at the store, and I should have asked for a discount, but I just was so happy to have something to knit, and as you can see, I have plenty left, so I could make a few more of these. That'll be in my stash, and maybe I'll do some charity knitting with this. So It is a blend, so it would still be, I think it's a blend. I should read my labels. It's 100% wool and says hand wash, lay flat to dry, so it's not even a super wash. But it fit the bill. It gave me something to knit with. It gave me the opportunity to learn a new skill and chart up a new design. So like I said, let me know if that's something that you would like to knit. If so, I'll get that pattern written up for you. While I was at Michael's, I got some other yarn, and this is Loops and Threads, which I think there were a lot of different varieties of loops and threads that were at Michael's, so I think that's their new house brand of yarn. And this one is it's a worsted weight yarn, and it is a blend of wool. It's 55% superwash merino and 45% acrylic. Again, they didn't have very many colors, and I got this because while we were visiting one of the national parks, we're in the visitor center looking around and getting our national park passport stamped, and my husband is looking, he's like, hey, you've got to see this book they have. And he didn't know that I was pretty well aware of this book. I just hadn't purchased it, but I've seen lots of people knitting it. So they had Knitting the National Parks at the national park. So I went ahead and bought that. And the visitor center that we were at, got some national park stickers too. The visitor center that we were at was for Black Canyon Gunnison. And it's not super well known, but it's a beautiful, beautiful park. And it's one of those that is easy to see in a short visit. There are not a lot of trails there. And actually, there was a huge forest fire there earlier in the summer. So parts of it are closed. The campground is closed. But you can still get to the canyon and you can see it, and you can drive around to a lot of different scenic overlooks and walk back short trails to see the canyon. So it really is, it's worth going to. Here's the hat. There's a picture of the canyon, but I'm going to stick in one of my pictures too. So it is basically a dark gray background with these streaks of pink through it. So this isn't really pink, but that was the closest that I could get there. And I didn't end up knitting that hat yet, but I will. I think I'm going to try and knit all the parks that I've gone to. That'll be another good way to remember where I've been and to have a nice souvenir of each one. So Knitting the National Parks by Nancy Bates. Great book, especially for all of us hat lovers. I did buy one more bit of yarn. Couldn't find a yarn shop anywhere. I think unfortunately our local yarn shops are becoming very few and far between. So we need to visit them and make purchases from them so that they stick around. Anyway, we were in a little gallery that had different artists' works displayed, and one of the artists was a fiber artist, and she had some very cute artistic bags, but then she also had some hand spun yarn, so I bought one skein. So I did have this yarn, but I didn't have a Swift. I could have wound it, but when you're used to having a Swift and a winder at home, you don't necessarily want to make somebody hold out their hands and try and wind it on your own. And it's such a pretty yarn. I want to use it for something special. I don't want to just use it because I ran out. And you know, she had several different blends of hand spun there, but they were all different and there wasn't two of anything. This one is 125 yards and it's 3 ounces. So a little bit of a chunkier yarn. Do you have any good vacation or travel stories where you've run out of yarn, or just the opposite, taken so much that it would have taken you 3 years to knit all of it? I'd love to hear about those. Let me know in the comments about that. Thank you so much for watching today. If you enjoyed what you saw, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell too, so that way you'll know anytime I have a new episode. I will see you all soon.